variety of different ways, including the elements in the bank itself, and also how the bank is applied to the videos. Yeah, but that's some point that Ananth missed. He's saying that applying the bank, the action bank, at different scales is to help deal with what you're talking about.
So you should go to the results since it's 5 to 2.
Yeah, that's my next slide. So far we've tested this method on 3 benchmark data sets: KTH, UCF Sport, and UCF 50. And in each of these three data sets, we've got better than state of the art results. The 4th one is in process at this very moment. I put it for running last night and it's still running. It's the SMDB 51. I'll get to that in just a minute. Now, the first data set that I tried this method on was the KTH data set. It's a very standard data set, and we did pretty well on it. The accuracy that we got was about 97.8% on an average. But the problem with KTH is it's a very simple data set. When I say a simple data set, a lot of the actions are in very controlled in controlled settings. Like, these are some of the instances, like on the top, these are some of the instances where people are actually boxing, and in real life nobody boxes like that. That was just made by a bunch of computer vision researchers to see how good methods are. So this is not really a good indicator, this is not a good indicator to know how good your classification method is. So
it also looks like they don't understand what jumping jacks are.
What's that?
That's not a jump. The bottom right one.
Oh, they're not jumping. Yeah, but all of them are picked up from the same class on KTH. Yeah. So, I forgot to mention this. There are 6 action classes in KTH with about 600. There are 599 samples in KTH. I still don't know why they didn't round it off to 600. Anyways, the kind of classification we used was a leave-and-out SVM classification, since the size of the data bank of the data set is pretty small, and we got a 97.8% accuracy on this data set. We try to use the same method on a larger data set, which not exactly larger data set, but a more realistic data set. So we tried this method on the UCF Sport data set, and again we did better than the state of the art with 95% accuracy. And some of the examples in this bank is like boxing and jumping jacks, which are far more realistic, and you can observe that these actions also have camera motion in them. So it's a very realistic activity recognition database. This dataset has about 11 classes and 149 samples in all, and we performed a leave-and-out SVM classification on it. Finally, the dataset that we tested my method on was the UCF 50 dataset. This is the biggest dataset that I have tested Action Bank on. It has 50 classes and more than 6,700 videos. And all of these videos are picked up from sources on the internet like YouTube, ESPN, and BBC. And there's a lot of inherent variation, and none of the videos are standardized. It's just actions belonging to a particular class put into one data set. Because of the size of this data set, because of the size of the data set, we performed a 10-fold SVM cross-validation, and these are the results we got. The 47.9% accuracy, those are like the baseline methods for UCF 50, and because of the very fact that this data set is so huge, not a lot of people in the community are experimenting with it, and we seem to do pretty well here also.
And now is a good time to thank Priyanshu, Suren, and Venkat for teaching us how to use the CCR, without which we never would have been able to handle this scale data set. And it's evident that none of the other people in the computer vision community can do it either without such a big computer system. So that's very helpful.
Just in case somebody doesn't know what CCR is, it's the Center for Computational Research based at the downtown campus. It has about 3,000 nodes.
Variance size, about 9,000 cores.
Yeah, 9,000, yeah, and all. So, anyways.
I computed it was going to take about 41 days to do on a 12-core machine that we have in the lab, which was clearly not that fast enough. And it took about 16 hours in total.
Oh, that's CCR.
So, you don't have to go to South Campus?
No. It's actually downtown, CCR, by my house. You can stay right here and do it.
Good thing it's networked.
Yeah, Dr. Corso made this image and it looks very pretty, so I wanted to put it up there. This is the confusion matrix for UCF 50, and you see a very definitive diagonal component. Like each of these are classes in UCF 50. It performs pretty well on the UCF 50 dataset. HMDB 51 is a dataset that came out like 10 days before the conference in which I submitted this paper for. So this is a dataset that I'm still calculating, still processing my algorithm on, and the baseline scores for this method is 20.8. And this is a very, very difficult dataset. The amount of variability in each of the videos is extremely high. So yeah, I should be getting results from this very soon. Yeah, there are 51 action classes, about 6,700, more than 6,800 video samples in it. Okay, let's look at some of the experiments. I'll keep this short. We just have 2 experiments. We had this discussion before over how much variability we include into the bank. So we started off with the idea that the more amount of templates that you have in the bank, the richer that you make it, the more discriminative it should get when it comes to classification of activities. That was the hope, that was the expectation. But by the course of running a few experiments, what we did was we tried the method with different sizes of the action bank. Like my current action bank size is 205 templates strong. We started off the same algorithm, the same method, using just 5 methods in the action bank. And we started off with an 84.7 accuracy on the KTH dataset. And as we progressively increase the size of the bank, we see an increasing graph, like the red graph, the red line. We see an increase in the amount of accuracy, but eventually that graph, it levels off. So what we took out of that was, it's not necessary that if you infinitely keep increasing the size of the bank, it should keep increasing your accuracy. Like the curse of dimensionality will start playing at some point. And that's why one of the things that I plan to do is to find the most optimal size of the action bank, which results in an acceptable amount of recognition rates with these methods. So that's what we picked out the varying the size of the bank experiments. And finally, we performed this experiment at the very end, but I believe it's one of the most important ones we performed, because when we conceptualized action bank, the idea was you have a few high-level semantics which are used for creating your activity descriptors, and we wanted to know if these high-level semantics are actually getting transferred to our final classification results. That's the underlying concept on which the action bank is based on. So we plotted dominant, by dominant I mean positive, like the top few positive and the top few negative SVM weights, weights for each of the classes in our SVM. And the expectation is we believe that for all instances that are classified as, let's say the action of clapping, then we expected that the constituent SVM weights would correspond to templates in the bank which have some sort of clapping in them. But what we found out was there was not an exact transfer of semantics from the bank representation to the final classification. But we get here's what we have. All these examples in red, they are positive instances that are actually contributing to one particular class, and all the instances in blue are negatively contributing to that particular class. Some of the examples that we see is for performing, or rather for classification of videos into the clapping class, some of the templates that contributed most were clap and violin. And the way we try to explain this behavior is clap has a lot of horizontal back and forth motion, and the violin also has a lot of horizontal back and forth motion. So the way we see it, we feel that it's the horizontal back and forth motion that is actually carried forward from the representation of the action into the actual classifier. But there are also a few semantic transfers that have occurred which we don't really have an explanation about, and I guess some of our experiments in future might try to justify that kind of a classification. So yeah, this paper